What have you learned and what do we understand about why this number is not readily available from the Ukrainian authorities?
So they just are not giving out any numbers at all, which is quite unusual because wars in recent years in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have always had figures from the forces of how many they've lost. So here it is just a complete secret. If you ask them, they literally say it's a secret.
Mm. Is there a suggestion within that or around this that Ukraine is struggling in terms of numbers, that their forces are depleted?
Well, I looked at this because there's been an awful lot of reporting of the Russian losses and how they're sort of throwing wave after wave of men into battle. But obviously, if they're doing that, there's also going to be high losses on the other side. And they've also been firing a lot more shells and missiles than the Ukrainians have. And if you go to the front line in the east, it's real First World War stuff. So you have a very high casualty rate usually.
Mm.
And I was meeting people who have come back from fighting there who all talk about the number of their colleagues that have been killed. So it seems to me that the numbers are very high. I don't think it's a concern that they're sort of running out of people at this stage, because a lot of people a year ago uh, signed up, people from all walks of life, as you probably remember.
Yeah.
But I think, if the war goes on for a long time, which is this sort of prediction of most people here, then it will be a problem because they won't have the necessary people, whereas the Russians are, do have far more. It's a much bigger country. And also, we know that they're using convicts from the Wagner group are recruiting. And it's, they have a much bigger pool of people to draw from.
One detail in your report, which is on the front page of the Sunday Times today, is that several times a month, Russia and Ukraine swap dead soldiers along the front line. What is your assessment of the reality that presents when that is happening several times a month?
Yeah, because one of the problems is the way that the fighting is going in the east, where it's people are just taking tiny amounts of territory and then being pushed back and forwards, and there's this kind of grey zone which nobody controls fully. So that's where a lot of the bodies from both sides are. And that's why they have to have these meetings occasionally to be able to access them. But you see, quite a number of graves in the military cemetery here that are unidentified people too. And there are many groups on social media, on Facebook and other platforms, of relatives that have had no contact from their sons or husbands or boyfriends who went to war months ago. And so, lots of people seem to be missing.
Yeah. With all of that in mind as well, Christina, I'm struck by the Rage Brigade and Katerina, who you report on as well. Tell us about Katerina, and I suppose the sort of underlining point here that the secrecy is not really dampening people's motivation to head to the front line.
No, I think, all of us that have reported here, and also, people following this from outside, have been struck by Ukrainian resilience and the bravery of people, and how everybody seems to want to do something to help, whether it's, making food to take to the soldiers, or making kind of camouflage netting for the trenches. And everybody seems to be involved in raising money. And so Katerina, I met on Friday, which was actually the anniversary of the invasion, at a recruitment centre in Western Kyiv. And they told me they were actually getting very few people, maybe maximum of 6 people a day, which is very different to the sort of thousands that were turning up last year. And she was a single woman in her mid-30s who'd been working in PR. And she told me that actually she'd been trying to join up for ages, but it's quite difficult as a woman, and also she didn't have any relevant experience. So she'd actually sort of gone away and done first aid courses, trauma courses, and things to make herself uh, a better candidate. And that day, they had finally taken her papers so she could enlist, and she just then had to wait for a medical and a psychological assessment. But she actually wouldn't give me her last name because she hadn't told her mother that she had enlisted.